Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast. With your hosts, Ashley and Michael, please sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast presented by the Undroppables and sponsored by Analyst Depot. I'm your host, Ashley. This is my lovely co-host, Michael Duncan. How are you today?
I am fuming because
Why?
HBO Max announced that they were doing a Harry Potter series. Don't act like we weren't just talking about it.
No, I thought you were talking about something else with HBO Max.
No, why? No, I'm angry.
So you keep going.
It's too early to make a. It's been like 12 years since the last Harry Potter movie came out. All of the actors are iconic in those roles. Like, they should stop it. Like, Percy Jackson can do it because those movies were horrible and nobody liked them except for Logan Lerman, who was awesome in it. And people want an actual good version. But instead, we're getting a remake of arguably like one of the greatest franchises in cinema history, at least one of the most iconic and most impactful. I'm very angry about this, and I don't have a platform to properly express my anger about Harry Potter movies, so I'm using this one.
I feel like you need to join like Reddit and throw all of your thoughts on there.
People suck.
I know we don't like Reddit.
I don't want to hear other people's opinions. I just want to talk about mine.
Yeah, originally I thought you were going to mention that HBO Max is rebranding into like just Max.
Are they really?
Yes, and
That's
everyone's
stupid,
including me, doesn't like it because it's like one of the best streaming platforms, if not the best, and they're going to rebrand themselves at a time where everyone else wants to leave all of the other streaming platforms to go to HBO Max.
Is it really the best?
100%.
I'm not. I don't have a subscription, so I don't know.
It has the best original content out of all of the streaming services, and really good old content too.
I don't know.
Original content like Game of Thrones, Succession, White Lotus, all of their
Game of Thrones was not an HBO Max original. That was an Game of Thrones wasn't an HBO Max original. It was a TV show.
So is like all of the HBO things. You can watch them live on HBO or HBO Max.
Yeah, but like I'm just saying you can't say Game of Thrones. You can say the sequel. No, because that doesn't count. That doesn't count. It was not a thing that HBO Max made.
Okay, fine. Then I'll just say House of the Dragon.
Max, yeah, that's fine.
Fine. Okay.
If anything, I'll give you the last season of Game of Thrones, which everyone hates anyway.
Don't give me that one. If you're not going to give me the other ones, don't give me that one.
Timeline-wise, that's the one that would make the most sense to give you. I've never watched Game of Thrones, so I don't have a strong.
I know I don't like that. Anyway, we could talk football. Or we could just keep talking shows. That's fine. We have lots to talk about there.
Unfortunately, talk about this for a while because I'm angry, but it's fine.
Anyway, so let's talk some news. Thankfully, the saga is over. Hopefully, we don't have to talk much about him for the next several months. OBJ has signed a 1-year deal with the Ravens worth up to $18 million. I believe it's 13 with the rest in
incentives.
That's what I was looking for. He originally had a meeting set with the Jets for Monday in which they were going to discuss like his future in an Aaron Rodgers led system, things like, even though there's still no update on that. And the Packers president says he can't talk about it. Odd. So he had a meeting set with the Jets for Monday for talking about all of that. And then announced his signing on Sunday with the Ravens on an Instagram post where his child was wearing Ravens gear. And then a lot of photos circulated. I think it was OBJ who posted them with him on FaceTime with Lamar Jackson. His future is still up in the air, but OBJ does sign. Thoughts?
I'm just so glad it's over. He got a lot more money than I was expecting, to be honest. I was not.
That's the gripe. That's where people are having their issues with it, which people are going to have issues no matter where he went, no matter how much he got paid. But he did get a lot of money for a older player who is coming off several severe low body injuries.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The Ravens, I have always credited the Ravens for being a very good organization. I've always thought that they were very much on the front bleeding edge of just like the way that you handle a franchise. Like their longtime GM, whose name is completely escaping me, who retired a couple of years ago. He was always fantastic. They had great drafts. I mean, their first draft is in history. They drafted Jonathan Ogden and Ray Lewis in the first round, and I don't think you can do much better than that. But they just haven't handled things well lately. I don't get. I understand addressing the need for wide receivers because that is a need and something they need to address. But if you don't have Lamar Jackson and you're not willing to pay Lamar Jackson, why are you paying an aging wide receiver that you don't even know can play? He hasn't played football for over a year. That much money. I don't know. It's just something about the way that they're approaching this. I don't like it. It doesn't seem like it's matched up with like logic.
Mhm.
So yeah, very confusing to me overall.
Yeah, and it seems like one of those things that they're going to be like, we know what we're talking about, and not really give much on and ride with it.
I mean, they
Either
threw
way.
out a reporter for asking about Lamar
Yes.
Jackson, and John Harbaugh looked concerned. So
Yeah. So this is the new Ravens. Anyway, Saquon says he is not going to be signing his franchise tag paperwork, which means come Monday he will not be able to participate in team events. We feel like we saw this coming. That he wants money. His agents have kind of been not the best, as reports are saying. Obviously, I don't have an ear in the rooms, but there's lots of talk that his agents are kind of asking for way too much to that something that would like completely reset the running back market. And the Giants aren't budging and they're holding. And now Saquon says he will not be playing on the franchise tag.
yeah, the only way that the running back market is getting reset is through not paying running backs.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had this argument too many times to have it
Yep.
again. I think the Giants are doing the right thing. And I don't think if Saquon gets paid, good for him.
Yep.
Bad for the Giants. If he doesn't play, bad for the Giants. Bad for Saquon. Like, I don't know. The Giants are in like a lose-lose situation here. I wouldn't have franchise tagged him in the first place. That's kind of where
I
I'm
know
at.
you wouldn't have.
I don't know. That's
The Lions trade quarterback Jeff Okudah to the Falcons for a 2023 fifth-round pick, in which it seems like the Lions were clearing a lot of cap space, which they did by doing that, and the Falcons make what seems to be a good move.
Yeah, I think the Falcons are doing a lot of really good small moves this offseason for a team that, short of a Lamar Jackson trade, probably won't be competing. Unless they draft a rookie quarterback who plays outstanding, because the NFC really is wide open. I mean, I'm glad that nobody is, but I don't really understand why none of these NFC teams are going after Lamar Jackson, because outside of Jalen Hurts, what quarterbacks are in the NFC that you're afraid of? I mean, especially if you say that Aaron Rodgers is going to the Jets, like there's not Justin Fields.
And that has shifted in the last few years because it used to be the opposite. And now it is completely shifted. So I agree with you. I think the Falcons are doing a lot of great things quietly. Everybody is talking about how they're doing their moves and how it seems to be great, but they're doing it quietly enough that it's not like one big splash play. So the man who went to a foreign land and ended up coming back, former Cardinals head coach Cliff Kingsbury is a senior offensive analyst under Lincoln Riley at USC. So he has returned to the United States and moved to college.
Yeah, I didn't see this.
No?
I saw this on the show sheet and I was like, oh, so good for him. He's probably going to get another job because he's going to be under Lincoln Riley, and Lincoln Riley is the bee's knees when it comes to college offensive people. So, I mean, good for him. He's still attractive and has a beautiful house. So,
yeah.
What else can you really ask for?
Yes. Anyway, on to two more sad pieces of news. There is a lawsuit about late quarterback Dwayne Haskins' death. It's from his family. They say he was drugged and robbed before the incident. So while he was running across the freeway, he was on some sort of drugs because of that altercation. They say there was some sort of defect with the car that caused it to run out of gas. And they claim that the dump truck that hit him was going over the speed limit, had worn tires, was overloaded. And there was something in there about brakes, which I don't have the exact line about, but there's something about the braking system on that car, which seems like a total crazy thing. I'm not saying it didn't happen, just like that it all happened the wrong way. They filed a lawsuit on his behalf, and that is going to be going to court.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And former Alabama and Louisiana Lafayette wide receiver draft prospect Michael Jefferson was involved in a fatal car accident. He is not the one who passed away. He struck a vehicle head on. That vehicle was driven by Charles Dunn, who was 55. After that had happened, another car then hit Charles Dunn's car, and he was killed. So they're just investigating the accident and everything that transpired there, but just to keep a note with the draft creeping up on us in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yes. So let's talk the NFL draft. It is coming up. So today we're going to talk a little bit about team needs. We will be off next week. And then just like last year, the show we have right before the draft will be looking at mock drafts. We'll each do every other pick.
Yes, let's freaking do it.
Yay. What is the exact date of the draft? I'm looking that up.
It's the 28th.
7th.
Dang it.
First round is the 27th. 2 and 3 on the 28th, and 4 through 7 on the 29th.
Wednesday?
I can look it up.
Well,
the 26th is Wednesday, yes.
If the first day of the draft is the 27th, then that's a Thursday. So.
Yep. And it is being held in Kansas City this year. Yay. All right.
Yay. They're selling milk and calling it Philadelphia's Tears or something.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Did you see the thing with the Phillies throwing hot dogs?
The Phillies throwing hot dogs?
Yeah. The Phillies fans throwing hot dogs.
Maybe.
Did you not see that? They were like throwing hot dogs. They ended up having to put something on the big screen that said like, "Please stop throwing hot dogs."
I completely missed that.
Yeah. And then there was a tweet that said, "I'm just imagining somebody flying into the city and being happy that they're getting to visit Philadelphia, and they fly over the ballpark and just see a giant screen that says, 'Please stop throwing hot dogs.'"
Oh, they were throwing it at each other. I thought you meant like.
No, they were having they were just
on the field
throwing hot dogs around.
Yeah. They sold over 60,000 hot dogs though.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good.
It's like such a Philadelphia storyline.
Oh yeah. I mean, they were losing. That's why. So
yeah.
Yeah, love it. I love it here. What a city. What a fan base.
Yeah, that is a very Philly thing to do. I saw somebody this week use the term "getting Phillied." They had just moved to Philly, and somebody stole their catalytic converter or something, and they say, "I got Phillied."
Oh yeah, because there's like a string of robberies. Yeah, that's
interesting.
It's not just Philly though; it's in a couple places, like in this area. But yes, that is a thing apparently. I know nothing about cars. I didn't even realize that a catalytic converter was something you could like take out. I don't know. I think
that pretty much everything in a car is something you can take out. It's just a matter if the car keeps working or not.
I'm assuming the catalytic converter would probably stop it from working. I had to buy a new one once, and it was really expensive. That's all I know about them.
They are expensive.
That sucked.
Anyway, the NFL draft, the 27th in Kansas City. So we'll go in draft order here in the top 10. Let's talk about the needs the teams are going to be looking for, things they're going to be looking to add throughout the draft, and any sort of possibility of trade ups, trade downs, anything like that. Well, we'll get started with the Panthers, who have the first overall pick because they traded with the Chicago Bears for it. They sent the 9th overall pick, the 61st overall pick, a 23 second-round pick that was acquired in the Christian McCaffrey trade, a 24 first-round pick, and a 25 second-round pick, and DJ Moore. Lots of things there.
Yeah, I couldn't keep track of what you said at all, but
I feel like I was saying it, and that was more than I remember it being.
Yeah,
but either way, big piece, DJ Moore. DJ Moore was involved in that trade that got them sent to the first overall draft pick. So obviously a wide receiver is something they're going to be looking for in this draft. But the one everyone is talking about is obviously quarterback for the Panthers. They have their pick here. And it seems no matter where you look, everybody has a different answer on which direction they're going to go. But I guess to say needs, they're really big needs currently, quarterback and wide receiver. They do. But in the first few rounds, probably quarterback and wide receiver.
Yeah, that's the crappy part about trading away DJ Moore to get a quarterback of the future is now your quarterback of the future is throwing to Laviska Shenault and Terrace Marshall
Hmm.
and Tommy Tremble at a tight end. Love me some Tommy Tremble.
Yes.
But yeah, no, not great. Whatever quarterback walks in there is not going to be walking into a great position.
They were better off having Sam Darnold throw to ghosts.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
use Sam Darnold.
it's not ideal, but I think you're right. It's really a 2-horse race right here. It's CJ Stroud and it's Bryce Young. If Richardson is the pick, I think a lot of people would be very shocked. Richardson being Anthony Richardson, hyper athletic quarterback, but just not really the polished prospect that CJ Stroud and Bryce Young are. CJ Stroud obviously being from Ohio State, Bryce Young being from Alabama. 2 of the best and most consistent programs in the NCAA. You know, these guys are there for a reason. The big difference with those guys, you know, there's obviously differences in their games, but the big one being CJ Stroud has 5 inches on Bryce Young. Bryce Young is 5'10". He weighs in at about 204. They're both under 21 years old, so they'll be 22 years old during next season. Yeah, it really just it comes down to Bryce Young's size. Like I think that's kind of the tiebreaker for a lot of people. It's probably and again, I think this isn't me trying to put down CJ Stroud, but I think if Bryce Young was CJ Stroud's size, the pick would probably be Bryce Young. But he's not. And CJ Stroud is also a really, really, really good quarterback. So that's who I expect to be the number 1 pick. But regardless, Frank Reich is in a position for the first time in his career as a head coach to have his choice of starting quarterback. He never got that in Indy. Obviously, he loved Andrew Luck, but then he retired. So we're going to see something very different.
Yes. His just read off some stats here is that CJ Stroud went overall with his 2 seasons as starter, 21-4. Had a decent amount of passing yards, 345 in each of the 4 losses. So he slings the ball, which is something he's known for in Ohio State. Again, though, that's a pick that scares me a lot. If you don't have any quarterback pick scares me if you don't have a wide receiver. But CJ Stroud, I think, needs wide receivers more than Bryce Young does, if that makes sense. Bryce Young's a little bit quicker on his feet. Yeah, I don't know. I think it goes either way, but I do agree with you that it probably is going to be CJ Stroud.
Yeah. He doesn't probably have the ceiling that Bryce Young does. Again, Bryce Young's ceiling is capped in the way that he's probably not going to be having a growth spurt at the age of 22. Like it is who they are. But you know what CJ Stroud is. He's a really good quarterback. He's probably the most pro-ready day one.
Yep.
I don't know. He's can't miss, but like that doesn't necessarily guarantee he's a hit, which makes it an interesting conversation. Because if Frank Reich says screw size, then the pick is Bryce Young. And maybe they surprise everyone and just go with Anthony Richardson. Really, what I'm trying to say is no one has any freaking clue what's about to happen. Yeah. I don't think they would have traded up to 1 if they didn't have a guy in mind. I think it would have been a bad move to trade up to 1 and not have a preference. So my belief is that they have a preference.
Yes. They did like to play those mind games, though, after they traded up, that they were like, well, maybe we'll trade up and trade back again. Like, who knows? Which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard after giving up all of that capital, that I guess if someone below them, if they don't really care which one they get and someone wants to just do a swap, like 1 and 2 want to do a swap, then maybe they'll consider it. But either way, this feels a little similar to like last year's, where we thought for a long time that it was going to be Aiden Hutchinson, and then the rumors started floating that it was Trayvon Walker, and then it was totally Trayvon Walker. So this is kind of a situation where you just kind of keep your ear to the ground, and something in the next couple of weeks will leak on who they're going to go for, and that will be who they end up going for.
Yeah, I mean, Aiden Hutchinson was like the betting favorite until like 2 weeks before the draft. And
he was a lock.
But he was very bizarre.
Yeah, it was odd. But then he got to play at his hometown, which is my favorite stories.
It's your favorite stories?
Yeah, like when they get to go play in their hometown. Like that's my favorite genre. When they get to go play in their hometown.
What's your favorite genre?
Of NFL storylines, yes.
Okay, I didn't realize they had genres. So
Yes.
that's news to
I mean,
me.
you get like comeback stories. You can have kid returns to his hometown.
Personally, my
hero.
favorite genre is the Eagles winning the Super Bowl.
So I guess that book wasn't written last year.
Sorry, you just paid Daniel Jones how much?
Oh, you're gonna go there.
Sorry, you just paid Saquon, or you're trying to pay Saquon how much? I don't want to hear it. Like
you opened the door. I just took my
you're
shot.
insulting me for making it to the Super Bowl. No,
I'm not. You just opened the door. And
I don't. I'm not insulted, but you were trying. I don't.
You feel thrown off.
Yeah, it's just a bizarre direction for you to go. It's not like you're a Chiefs fan. Like you're a Giants fan. What was the score of our playoff game?
Because I'm a Giants fan, I'm an anti-Eagles
38-7. Do I need to play the video, Ashley?
No, we're moving on to the Texans.
I'll do it.
I'm positive.
All right, then don't hit me with that.
Moving on to the Texans. This is the first of the Texans' 2 picks in the first round. They pick again at 12. This pick comes from them trading Deshaun Watson to Cleveland. D'Amico Ryans came out this week and said that they are not looking for a, quote, franchise savior with this pick, which is interesting. Some of their needs are quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line. What are you pondering over there?
This is not the Cleveland pick.
I thought it was.
No, if this was the Cleveland pick, then Lovie Smith going for 2 and all that stuff wouldn't have mattered in week 18.
Where was it? Hold on. Maybe I have them backwards then.
I think you have to, because Lovie Smith had the number.
Oh, so I apologize. Yes. Yeah. This one is, I apologize. This is their own first round pick. 12 is the one that's from the Browns. Correct. So the second first round pick that they have. My apologies. So this is their own first round pick. But yeah, I told you before the show, one of my favorite traditions is logging on and looking up, who needs what team needs what. And every time you do it, it says Texans need all positions. And that is one of my favorite things. It is pretty hilarious. So like I said, big one here. Everyone's expecting them to go quarterback. Also need to fill holes with wide receiver and offensive line.
Yeah, I'm not convinced they're going quarterback. And
really?
Don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not going to be surprised if they go quarterback. Like, this isn't going to be like, Michael, you're an idiot. They went quarterback. It's like, well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense if they went quarterback. But, like, D'Amico Ryans is a defensive head coach. They signed him to a long-term 5-year deal, and I don't think they bring D'Amico Ryans home because he's a former, like, top pick for that franchise. I don't think they bring him home to treat him like they did Lovie Smith and the guy who was there the year before, whose name is escaping me. I think he knows he's got time. And I also think he knows he's not a quarterback away. And if he doesn't love one of these players at 2, there's a couple really talented players at other positions in this draft, namely Will Anderson, or Jalen Carter. Obviously kind of has his different issues, obviously, but like there's guys that I think D'Amico Ryans would be very, very, very happy to start out his time with. Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, maybe a cornerback like Devon Witherspoon, or the other one, Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon. There's apparently like a lot of rumors that Tyree Wilson is their guy, which is bizarre to me. I don't really like Tyree Wilson. He's an edge out of Texas Tech. He's a senior. He's old. He's old for a draft prospect. So there's talk that he's their favorite and he could go number 2. So I'm not completely convinced. And there's also a couple good offensive linemen. That all to say, I think the chances are they probably take the one of CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, who was not taken first overall. But D'Amico Ryans taking Will Anderson and getting the best pass rusher in this draft is not out of the question for me.
I also think that also helps to put a little bit more in perspective on his statement, right? On they're not looking to draft a franchise savior with number 2.
Yep.
And I also think while this quarterback class is not the Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones quarterback class, like with a million people in it. There is some depth to this position that they could draft someone at 12. There is a likelihood. I'm not going to say Will Levis is going to be there, but a Hendon Hooker, Stetson Bennett is going to be there at 12 if they really wanted to take a quarterback. Anthony Richardson may make it to 12. So there is a chance that one of these guys who could sustain the team, not, get them into a Super Bowl right away, but sustain the team until they're ready to do what they need to do and build up talent around them, and then go for a quarterback later on. So I like that thought process, and it's not something that I had put way too much thought in. I kind of believe they'll probably take one at 2, but hearing everything that's been coming out of the camp the last few weeks definitely leans a little bit more towards what you're saying.
Yeah. And maybe they're putting that out there because they're trying to trade back, and they're trying to put out on the open market to maybe Indianapolis, who picks at 4, or Seattle at 5, Detroit at 6, Las Vegas at 7. Like, all of those teams, they could be in the market for a franchise quarterback. Maybe they're just trying to get those guys to pay a lot to move up. Who knows?
Yep.
And they're letting them know they're open to business. Regardless, again, all this to say, who the heck knows? They've got decent pieces on offense already. They have a franchise left tackle that just agreed to a massive extension. They do have Dameon Pierce, who showed out as a rookie last year. Although I'm just waiting for them to draft Bijan Robinson at 12.
They would if they would.
If they might. I don't think Bijan Robinson is going in the top 10. At 12, the Texans scares me. Scares me from the point of view of like, wow, some NFL GMs are just morons.
Yeah.
I don't get it. But
it's also scary from a fantasy point of view too, for people who have. I
think that'd be fine. If you like Dameon Pierce,
yes, that's what I'm saying.
You're James Robinson managers 3 years ago when they drafted 2 years ago when they drafted Travis Etienne. So they could go a lot of different ways. I think if they like one of their guys, if they like who they're left with out of the top 2, or maybe they fell in love with Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, then they probably just take him. But I wouldn't be shocked if they pass over quarterback.
Yeah. So do you think they're a trade down candidate because of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think they're my favorite trade down candidate, but I think there's a very real chance, because if they can pick up a future first and have more stockpiled to get more difference makers, like they know they're not one player away.
Yep.
So why not try? And if you're not in love with the quarterback that you're going to get, why not just trade back, get more capital, and get a blue chip player elsewhere while also getting opportunities in the future?
Yep. My favorite trade down candidate is the next one, which is the Cardinals. All week, we've been hearing about how many teams are seriously interested in that 3rd overall pick. Apparently, there are 5 teams who have had serious interest and calls with the Cardinals about this pick. Cardinals, obviously, like every other team, have needs to fill, but again, are another one that just seems far away, and like the organization's in a bit of a disarray. So this has clearly been the one people are looking at to trade back. But we can talk about if they decide to stay, what their needs are, both offensive and defensive line, cornerback, a couple others here and there. My favorite, if they choose to stay here, is probably Will Anderson here at 3. And I think that's the general consensus. I have him lower in this conversation. I'll talk about him later because I expect the Cardinals to trade back.
Yeah. I mean, it's Will Anderson for me if they stay put.
Yep.
He's a difference maker on the defensive line. They just hired Jonathan Gannon, who, by the way, just had he had the 3rd or 2nd best offense or defensive line in NFL history, according to sacks, with the Eagles. And they have a decent offensive line. It's very patchy. It's a lot of older players. There's not really many home developed, homegrown talent that they drafted and it built up. You compare it to, I'm going to do it because I know the most about it. You compare it to the Eagles, who they drafted all 5 of their starters and like it's just they've either been an all pro for like 10 years or
Mhm.
they're generally young and they developed them. And the Cardinals isn't like that at all. It's, a trade here, a failed first round pick in Justin Pugh over here, a random free agent to patch this offensive line, a vet here. Like there's no like blue chip. There's no like, we know you're going to be on this
Yes.
offensive line for the next 10 years. And that's super valuable.
Mhm.
It's, I feel like it gets kind of thrown under the rug sometimes, but having that is one of the most valuable things in all of sports. Like you saw the Chiefs pay Orlando Brown before not being able to pay Orlando Brown, but
Yeah.
fix it after they lose the Super Bowl. The Eagles just made it with one of the best offensive lines in NFL history. Like that's important. And especially with the way Kyler Murray plays, and he's coming off an ACL injury. He's been injured pretty consistently in his career. Like the way to win football games is through the offensive and defensive line. So I don't think they're going to take a quarterback. I think any rumors of them doing that has been kind of a smokescreen, which is why they are a great trade down candidate because they're right in front of Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And if someone wants the quarterback that's on the board and they don't want Indianapolis to take it, you trade with the Cardinals. They're in a prime spot to be able to trade back. And if they trade back, there's a ton of options that I really like on the offensive line that I don't know if I would love at 3. There's Peter Skoronsky, who is probably the best offensive lineman in this draft. But there's question marks about whether or not he's going to be able to play offensive tackle at the next level. He played tackle and guard at Northwestern, but due to his measurables, they think, the consensus has kind of been that he's probably going to be best suited as a guard, and taking a guard at like 3 is not good value. Ask the Titans about Chance Warmack. That's the last time I can remember that happening. And there's a couple other guys too. Paris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State, who I like. Broderick Jones out of Georgia. Like some really solid players, but I think you can very well move back and still get one of those top tier guys. So that's kind of where I see. I think the Cardinals are in a really, really good spot. But again, if they stay put, Will Anderson, I think, is an easy pick for Jonathan Gannon.
Yep, 100%. Now, this is where it gets most interesting, right? Because it's what the Colts are going to be left with, what the Cardinals do with that pick. Yeah. I think the Colts pick is heavily dependent on what the Cardinals decide to do, which sounds like something so simple to say, but it's who they're going to be left with, essentially, because those top 3 are Stroud, Bryce Young, and depending on who you talk to, Richardson. And the Colts are obviously in need of a quarterback. They have other gaps to fill at cornerback, offensive line. But the consensus seems to be they're going to go quarterback here. And it seems like they may possibly be left with Richardson, which is something I would expect them to do anyway. They totally would.
Yeah. I mean, Shane Steichen, now the head coach there, former offensive coordinator for the Eagles. Look what he did with Jalen Hurts. And I'm not saying at all that Anthony Richardson is Jalen Hurts. They're very different players, very different amounts of experience coming out of college. Jalen Hurts was a much more finished product, having played 5 years in college and being on 2 of the biggest programs in college football. He was still a work in progress, obviously, but he was much closer to a finished product than Anthony Richardson is. He's a sophomore redshirted player. He's young. He's so raw, but has incredible athleticism. That could be really fun in Shane Steichen's offense that I'm sure is going to have a very similar look to what the offense looked like last year for the Eagles. He was the play caller. It was Nick Sirianni's offense, but Shane Steichen was the play caller. So again, it obviously depends on if someone comes up, but I think if everyone's staying put so far, I would probably be drafting Anthony Richardson here, or rather, I think that's what they would be doing. It could easily be Will Levis. They could easily surprise the world and not draft a quarterback. But I think that Jim Irsay, being the insane man that he is just so sick and tired of not having a franchise quarterback that he's going to finally just draft one.
Yeah, and Irsay is not a man who's allergic to risk. He is willing to take the upside with Richardson and also take on that risk. One of my favorite, Richardson, there was a heat map of his throws at and it has a moat in it, like genuinely right in the middle. He's very good at short check down stuff and very good at long distance stuff, but all the mid yardage stuff he has a huge moat in. But I was just looking at Player Profiler workout metrics for Anthony Richardson. His athleticism score is a 116.6, which means nothing unless you look at number 1 of 272 all time.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
He's very good.
He is very good.
He's very athletic.
Yeah, and I think the word you used is what a lot of people have been calling. He has a lot of raw talent and stuff that's going to need to be taught and piecemealed a little bit to get him into this well-rounded prospect. But it's a team that's going to take on risk and try to develop players, as you were talking about before.
Yeah.
And it's, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be the Colts.
Yeah. I mean, he played quarterback for one season. Like that's all he did. Like in 2021, he didn't. I think he threw 40 pass attempts. 2022, he was the quarterback, and he looked really good. But he's just about as raw as they come. His ceiling is a Josh Allen type ceiling, Cam Newton-ish. You hope he can be a better thrower than Cam Newton, but Cam Newton won an MVP, went 15-1, and went to a Super Bowl. But the floor, I'm just gonna harp on the Bills here and say EJ Manuel. Or I don't know, a much bigger Johnny Manziel. Like it's a rough floor, but he's 6'4", 232. Like he has the size, he has the strength, he's young. And Shane Steichen has good experience working with quarterbacks. He worked with Justin Herbert, he worked with Jalen Hurts. So
and specifically, I think the comparison can be made that he worked with mobile quarterbacks, and that's what Richardson is really good at. Richardson on the rush is deadly, and having had that experience with Jalen Hurts taking on someone like Anthony Richardson, it's a different development process than a pocket passer. So being able to be involved in that development of Jalen Hurts and now going to Anthony Richardson, it just seems like the stars are aligning for the Colts to take him.
Oh yeah. No, I agree. I think that's where I'm at right now. Who knows what's going to happen? No one.
On to the Seahawks, who will be drafting from the pick that they got in the trade for trading away Russell Wilson to Denver at 5. They do pick again at 20, which is their own pick. But needs edge, defensive tackle, offensive line, cornerback. If the Cardinals move, this was where I have Will Anderson landing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the top 2 people on their board are probably Will Anderson and Jalen Carter. The big mystery of this draft is Jalen Carter. There was a period of time where he was the top prospect on the board, period. Obviously, just, positional value put quarterbacks above him, but in terms of just plain, like, percentage chance of this dude's going to be a blue chip Hall of Fame prospect, like, it was Jalen Carter. And I think that if he they have not had a big issue taking risks on players. I mean, they have a very questionable drafting history in general during this Pete Carroll era, with some really weird picks at plenty of times. But if they are okay with taking the risk on Jalen Carter, I think they sprint that up. I think they love the idea of just a big pass rushing Jalen Carter, pass rushing defensive tackle, a difference maker on the defensive line that they just haven't had in so long. I mean, it's tough because when I think of the Seattle Seahawks, I always think of a strong defense and a good running game. And it's been a while since they've had that strong defense. But Jalen Carter would just be a difference maker. He's not, unlike his college teammate Jordan Davis, who was drafted by the Eagles last year. Like, Jordan Davis was a massive body and nose tackle defensive tackle who he's not made to rush the passer. He can because he's massive and the most athletic defensive tackle ever drafted, but that's not his specialty. Jalen Carter is disruptive. He is the closest thing to like an Aaron Donald or Chris Jones level of defensive tackle in this draft. And the talent is so hard to pass up on. It's just, does he clear the off the field checks and all that crap?
So I'm going to remind those of you who either don't remember or didn't hear, Jalen Carter was involved in a deadly accident after the college national championship, which resulted in the death of 2 people, I believe, both from the one player and one staff member, in which there are allegations of speeding and drinking in the car, where he was issued a warrant was issued for his arrest during the combine. He ended up missing, his interviews during the combine because they sent out a warrant for his arrest and he had to return back to Georgia. There were allegations that he fled the crime scene after, or I don't want to call it crime scene, fled the area of the accident after it happened and returned later. So there's questions about if this is going to pass before the season comes and he will be able to play, and character issues along with that.
Yeah. And I think that if it's not Jalen Carter and Will Anderson's already off the board, I think that's when they probably look at a guy like Tyree Wilson.
Yeah.
The edge out of Texas Tech, who again I'm not a huge fan of. I think he's good, he's talented, but I just have questions about how effective he's really going to be at the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's too early for him, but mocks have had him going in the top 10 fairly consistently. So
yeah. Well, it's funny you mention him because the next pick is for the Detroit Lions. It is the pick that they acquired in the Stafford trade, the 2021 trade that sent Stafford to Los Angeles.
Yep.
They pick again at 18, so they have 2 first-round picks. And I think Tyree Wilson ends up here. I think this is the type of player they're looking for. Big size, has a very big size, very strong, lots of force. And I think that defensive line is a little bit of a weak spot for the Lions. I don't think they're going to really look to improve any skill positions or anything this early. I think they're happy the trajectory their team is on and have a little bit of a sore taste in their mouth because of the way the defensive line underperformed last year. So this is where I have Tyree Wilson going.
Yeah, I mean, I think the list of players is fairly similar to the Seahawks here.
Yeah.
There's the obvious ones of Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, if they're still available. I don't know if they go Jalen Carter necessarily, but I think there's a decent chance that this is where we see the trigger finally being pulled on one of the top cornerbacks.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Devon Witherspoon, I don't know which one it is, and Christian Gonzalez.
That was the other one I was going to say.
Yeah. Christian Gonzalez is probably my top cornerback on the board.
Yeah.
He just has everything that you want in a cornerback. He's 6'1", he's fast, he's a decent weight, he's like just under 200 pounds. Devon Witherspoon is insanely talented. His ball skills and his instincts are probably unmatched, but the issue with him is it's size. He's, 5'10", 5'11", 180. That's very small. There's not many successful there's not many cornerbacks that have been drafted this early in the draft at those measurables. The one exception being Denzel Ward, who granted worked out pretty well. Devon Witherspoon is a dog though. And that is kind of why I feel like that might be the direction that the Lions go, because their head coach likes him some dogs, and that is Devon Witherspoon.
Yep. So I think that's probably what I think we covered all the bases of what their big board looks like. On to the next, who is the Raiders. They have their own pick at 7 here. Some needs they need to address: quarterback, edge, defensive tackle, and guard. Any thoughts for you?
Yeah. So I definitely think that the cornerbacks are possibilities, but I would guess with Josh McDaniels as their head coach, I think we see either a quarterback going here. If one of the top ones is left, I think at this point we kind of agree it would probably be Will Levis, whatever the heck his last name is. Levis. I don't know why I said it wrong twice after saying it right the rest of this draft. I like Levi's better, actually.
Yeah.
It should be like whoever that quarterback was that walked onto the draft stage in jeans. I don't remember who that was, but it was hilariously underdressed. And if it's not a quarterback, I think I'm almost positive we see an offensive lineman come off. It might be Peter Skoronski, who, again, has a lot of versatility. I think he's probably best suited to play guard. Mainly, I believe it's because of his short arms in particular. He just doesn't really have the length that's ideal for being an offensive tackle. But again, like, he is probably the best offensive lineman in this draft. We could see him going here. There's also Paris Johnson, out of Ohio State. Yes. And there's one other guy whose name is escaping me. Oh, yeah, Broderick Jones out of Georgia. They're kind of the top 3 guys on my board when I'd be looking at what they need and what they want. And I think Josh McDaniels, I think he understands the importance of having a strong offensive line. It's not something they've had for a while. So I wouldn't be shocked if this is the first place where we see an offensive lineman come off the board.
I agree with that. And I think it's something they definitely need to improve throughout the draft. They have 4 picks in the draft, so I wouldn't doubt that it's not one of the ones that I think they would feel confident enough putting off until later with only 4 picks.
Yeah.
So that I could see them going for that there. Speaking of little picks, we're going on to the Falcons, who only have 3 picks in this year's draft, 8, 44, and 75. Their needs, where did she go? They are looking, some of the needs that are listed for them are edge, defensive tackle, and cornerback. It is their own pick here. And they have a pretty open board for things that they're looking for, at least according to what we're speculating.
Yeah, I mean, cornerback would be really interesting. They just traded for Jeff Okudah. They already have AJ Terrell, who's been awesome out of Clemson, drafted in the first round a couple years ago. You could definitely look at Christian Gonzalez or Devon Witherspoon, depending on which one is still there. I think they're both best suited as outside cornerbacks, but you're also, they're walking in and they don't have to be the number 1 dude right away because AJ Terrell is there, which is probably helpful. Again, always the possibility of quarterback for this team. God, I think they're one of the most wide open teams in this top 10 because they could go any direction, but they're not really in a place where they can control their own fate fully because they can't just choose a quarterback if there's one they like on the board. Like, all 4 could be gone by now. We don't know.
Yes.
So there is also the possibility of defensive linemen because I think they need difference makers on the defensive line, and defensive line is hard to get. Their offensive line is actually like pretty okay for the most part. Again, it's not out of the question because I think blue chip offensive linemen, it's not something you can have too many of. So yeah, again, could be across the board. But I think if there isn't a quarterback available, then I think they go probably an edge rusher. And maybe this is where it's Tyree Wilson. Maybe we start to see the likes of a Lucas Van Ness, who I think that would be way too early for, but the mocks think that he's not. It's way too early for him. I don't like him. If the Eagles take him, I will cry. That being said, if he turns into an all-pro, I will be thrilled and happy. But Tyree Wilson, Miles Murphy out of Clemson. Very safe player. Nolan Smith, edge out of Georgia, who I really like. Darnell Wright, that was another offensive tackle that is in that range. But yeah, very large amount of players. The pool really starts to open up here because I think there is like it's a top-heavy draft, and then a lot of meh.
Yeah.
I mean, meh for a first round, not like...
Yeah. Yep. Talent that will produce, but not at a first-round level.
Yeah, not at a top 5 level.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some drafts where, if you're picking a 10, you're thrilled.
Yeah.
And now it's like the Eagles picking a 10. I don't know if there's 10 players that I want, like, at that spot. I truly don't know if there's 10 players that I would be happy with. So that makes it tough.
Yeah. The Falcons for me are one. I don't know. The way they're making their offseason, I don't see them going after a quarterback. I think even if one falls there, I don't know that that's going to be their direction. I could see them doing it. I don't know. I just think based off the trend their offseason is having, that they might not, that they're kind of slowly building these pieces and not trying to make giant moves.
Yeah.
I do think they go for a safer player like a Miles Murphy, like you said. Yeah. I don't know. I just don't see them with a quarterback. That's my thoughts. I don't really have much on the Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they could take Bijan Robinson also because they're.
I feel like we could say it for every single one.
No, I disagree with that. I specifically waited until right now to say that because their head coach is an absolute moron. So,
Yeah.
who happens to love running the ball and establishing it. I hate him. God, I think he's an absolute donut.
Yeah. On to the Bears. This is where the Bears fell to after trading with the Panthers. This is the 9th overall pick. Their needs, talk about pass rusher, offensive line. Yeah, I mean they fixed wide receiver a little bit by getting DJ Moore. They have a lot of faith in Justin Fields. I think the DJ Moore really opens up their draft for them because I feel like they'd be locked right around now. I think it's still a little bit early for the wide receivers here, but locked around now and trying to find offensive weapons for Justin Fields.
I think if they didn't draft it'd be Jackson Smith and Jigba.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, so they'd be locked here at having with putting as much faith in Justin Fields as you are. You're going to be locked and handcuffed here to having to get someone like him or another offensive weapon, but I think the only answer was him. So this opens up that board for them a little bit more. A lot more, I should say.
Yeah, if I'm the Bears, I'm just taking the best offensive lineman on the board.
Yep.
I mean, like if you're telling me it's Peter Skoronski, then it's Peter Skoronski. Fine, they need starters. They need good players along the offensive line. He will slide in there right away and start at right tackle. Yep. Like if you want him to be a tackle, he'll slide right in there at right tackle. He can play either of the guard spots. Like he's really good. Like I said, he's probably the most talented offensive lineman in this draft. He will be able to start day one for the Bears, and they just need it. They need it.
I think that's probably their only requirements is protect Justin Fields and be able to start on day one.
Yeah,
and that's all they need. If I'm confident in anything that is what they're going to end up doing.
Yeah. So I mean, I'd take the best offensive lineman available. I think it's just too. I think the only wide receiver that could start going around this. I think the first wide receiver off the board will be Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I do not think that Jackson Smith and Jigba is worth this high of a pick.
No.
That's what I'm trying to say, and I was failing at saying it.
Yes.
But this is not the drafts of late where we've had Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, Jamar Chase all going in like the top 12 or whatever. Like this is not that. This is not.
It's him, and then there's a huge gap between next. Like I say huge a little bit more than most people, but there's not a lot of depth at this position. I mean, there's
not a lot of top end depth anyway.
No, yes, that's right. So what, 3 at the top that are really intriguing, and 4 maybe, but to warrant a first round pick, I think he's the only one.
Yeah. So according to NFL mock draft database, they have currently basically it just pulls every mock draft that like exists. They have 4 wide receivers that are mocked in the first round. It's Jackson Smith and Jigba, Quentin Johnson, Jordan Addison, and Zay Flowers. All going after pick 10.
Where's Josh Downs?
Josh Downs is in the second round at around 51. That's where his
Gotcha.
Yeah. And even that, it's still kind of all over the board a little bit. Some people have him early 30s, like that's how it works. But I don't want to spend that. I think they made a very smart move when moving back to number 9 that they have to get DJ Moore in that because it doesn't hamstring them into being forced to take Jackson Smith and Jigba or their favorite wide receiver with their first round pick. So I really like that.
And I think they've shown that, I keep saying it, that they are so faithful to Justin Fields that they will do everything in their power to protect him, having a clearer picture of what his ceiling is now, that they're going to fully commit to protecting him. And number 10, the last one we'll talk about today, the Eagles. They have the 10th pick. That's from the Saints trade in 2022. I won't even talk about needs. I just want you to run away with it. What do they need? What do you think they're going to do here?
Yeah, so they're by far the most complete team that's picked so far in the draft because they shouldn't have had the 10th overall pick.
Yes.
The Saints just happen to be absolute and total morons. As I've been saying for the past year when they did the trade initially, like they're not a good team. It was going to be a high pick. Everyone saw this coming except them. Anyway, they can go so many different ways. And a lot of it is going to be very dependent on who falls. If Jalen Carter falls, I think they run the card up.
Oh my God, it would be fit for them.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
I could picture it. Like,
it's well, because here's the
I
thing.
don't like it.
Here's the thing. First off, if you think I want you, listener,
Me
right now.
specifically? Oh,
No, not you, listener.
sorry.
I want you to look me in the eyes. Go on YouTube if you have to watch this. Look me in the eyes. Howie Roseman is not going to draft Bijan Robinson at number 10. If you believe that to be true, you are an idiot.
I'm just going to say you're looking directly in the camera. If you just look at your screen, they'd be able to make eye contact better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If you'd like to Venmo me any amount of money, if the Eagles draft Bijan Robinson at number 10, I will double that money and send it back to you. However, if they don't, I get to keep your money. That is how confident I am that they will not be drafting Bijan Robinson. I don't care. I don't care how good he is. Howie Roseman is a smart fellow, and he understands that paying running backs and spending high amounts of dollars or draft capital on running backs is not good practice. They have the best rushing DVOA of any offense in the last 3 years with Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, and Boston Scott. Like, they have the best offensive line in football, and it's not close. They don't need Bijan Robinson. They don't. It doesn't make sense. They want to draft someone. If they think that Jalen Hurts is their quarterback for the next 10 years, they want to draft someone that will be with Jalen Hurts and be a core piece of this roster for the next 10 years. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm off my soapbox, but I had to get that out because people are idiots.
Do you feel better?
Calling them, no, not really, because I know people are still idiots. Because we do it every year. Normally, it's a linebacker. Oh my God. Oh, they're finally going to draft a linebacker in the first round. It's their biggest need. No, because Howie doesn't value linebackers, you donuts. He doesn't. And look what happens every freaking time. Nakobe Dean's on the board in the first round. Oh, they're going to draft. Yeah. Nope. Oh, look, he's on the board in the second round. Oh, they're going to draft it. Oh, nope. Oh, he's still on the board in the third. Yeah, the third round. That's fine. Sure, that's fine. That's not the same as a first round.
That was wild. I never saw him going that far.
No, that's a whole different.
That was wild.
That being said, Howie Roseman likes to draft two things, and they're named offensive line and defensive line.
Yep.
If Jalen Carter slides, I think that's an automatic pick. I
don't even want to think about that.
They have a lot of trust in Big Dom, who is their head of security. He gets information. He's like a very beloved figure in the Eagles community.
I've seen videos about that specific position and like what they do, and it's so interesting.
Have you ever seen Necessary Roughness?
Yes.
You actually have?
I think so. I think I know what you're talking about.
Nico is like literally at his position.
Yeah, no, and I've seen like interviews and stuff with people who used to hold that position, and they are like the job title and what they do is so interesting.
I used to think that like Nico was like a very fictionalized version of that type of. Nico is a character on Necessary Roughness. If you've never seen it, it was like early 2010s ish. Great show. It lasts for like 3 seasons. It has to do with a football team and therapy. Yeah. Very fun. Very good show. I thought he was a very fictionalized version of that type of person, but no, that's apparently exactly what they do. So he's one of the best in the league at what he does. I think if they believe that Jalen Carter checks all their boxes off the field, then he's going to be an automatic pick at number 10. I don't know. We're all over the place in terms of him dropping and falling. Yeah. I don't really think he's going to be there, but if he is, he's the pick. If not, I don't want Luke Van Ness. He didn't even start at Iowa. I don't want him. He's a project. He's a year or two away. I think the Eagles want to get someone that can walk in. If they're going to be spending this high of a pick on a defensive lineman, they want a guy that can walk in and get 10 sacks. Like, Nolan Smith is a guy that I really like. The only problem is he's very, very similar to Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick is his biggest comp, and why draft Hassan Reddick when you already have Hassan Reddick? That being said, I really like Nolan Smith. I think he's really good. Defensive line and offensive line. A lot of people around the league don't necessarily think the Eagles are going to go offensive line because what do you do with a top 10 pick on offensive line on the Eagles' offensive line? You have Jordan Mailata being paid a lot of money to play left tackle. Landon Dickerson has been a Pro Bowler at left guard and he's entering his 3rd season. Jason Kelsey is Jason Kelsey. You drafted Jason Kelsey's heir apparent last year in Cam Jurgens, and he's probably starting at right guard right now. And then you have Lane Johnson being the best tackle in all of football at right tackle, who hasn't given up a sack since like 2020. Like, there's not an obvious place to put him. But that being said, the Eagles value having depth and they value having good players at that position. So I don't think that's out of the question. If a Peter Skoronski is there, if Paris Johnson, I don't know who Paris Smith is. I made that up. Or Broderick Jones. Like, I think there are 3 guys that they could very well see. Maybe they compete for right guard snaps. Maybe they play at guard next year if Kelsey retires, Cam Jurgens moves to center. Lane Johnson, maybe he only plays 2 more years. And then, okay, you've got the heir apparents never actually work out.
No.
I mean, the Eagles drafted like 12 heir apparents, Jason Peters. One of them was Lane Johnson. Like, that, it never happens how you expect it to. But yeah, I think all those are very, very realistic. I don't think that either of the top 2 cornerbacks are going to be there at this point. Or
that was going to be my question to you: is if someone like a Christian Gonzalez or a Devon Witherspoon is still there, do you think that's someone they go after at this position?
If Christian Gonzalez is there, sure, because I again, he's just got everything that you want. The problem there is Darius Slay got a 2-year extension. James Bradbury signed a 3-year deal.
Yes, so that's why I was.
And you've got Avonte Maddox getting a lot of money, and it's not. I know I just made the exact argument for offensive line. I don't think they feel the same way about cornerback, because they have a lot invested in it already. So, but those guys, like, I see the argument both ways, because those guys are both aging. They're both old. They don't have a lot of young talent there. But then again, if you spend a top 10 pick there and he's just not going to play, and Christian Gonzalez is a day 1 ready NFL starter. So I understand both ways. I don't think it would be a good use of resources to draft that when you have Super Bowl aspirations. But if they do, you're getting a really good player. I see it both ways. Yeah. But I don't think they're going to like reach on a cornerback because they're trying to plan for the future or something like that. Yeah. So, and there's also a very real chance that they trade back.
Yep. That about wraps up the top 10 segment. Just a quick little few other things I wanted to add in here. There are 4 teams without a 1st-round draft pick. That is the Browns, the Rams, the Niners, and the Dolphins, who lost their 1st-round pick. It was stripped from them because of tampering with Tom Brady before he went to the Bucs, or while he was with the Bucs, or recently, I don't even know, whatever. So they don't have a top pick. You did inform me, which I was clarifying. The Dolphins could trade up into the 1st round. They just don't have their original 1st-round draft pick.
Yeah.
Real quick, is there any teams under 10 that you can see making a bigger move up towards, I'm not saying in the top 10, but up towards the top 10?
I mean, the Titans at 11, I think, make a lot of sense if they want to grab a quarterback. Yeah. Just like going down the list, the Ravens. I mean, who knows what the heck's going on? And the Vikings, I think, are probably the 2 biggest ones.
I mean, mine was the Vikings.
They pick at 22 and 23. So
the rumors I've heard from beat reporters is that the Vikings are one of the ones that are very serious on trading with the Cardinals at 3.
Yeah. Yeah, because they I mean, the Kirk Cousins contract situation is so interesting, and like, I think he could basically be gone next year. Like, I think he's only on a 1-year deal, maybe. I don't fully remember.
I think that's what it is.
It's very odd. Also, I didn't mention Joey Porter Jr. When talking about the cornerbacks, but he's another guy. He's probably too rich for the top 10, but I think he's going to go like right after that top 10, or if he sneaks into the top 10. It's very realistic. He's a cornerback out of Penn State. He's exactly what you want in a cornerback from a size, speed, athleticism type perspective. He just had a lot of penalties, or there's a lot of grabbing and pushing and stuff. He's very physical. So there's some question marks around that, but he's a really talented player. He's kind of, I think I managed to get a lot of the guys in that I think are kind of on that edge, but he was a guy that I didn't really get to mention. So yeah. Just want to throw that out there.
Sounds good. So that about wraps it up. We will be gone next week and back the following week to do our mock draft of the 1st round of the NFL draft. Real quick, where can we find you, Michael Duncan?
Hopefully watching the Sixers secure a 1st-round victory against the Ben Simmons-less Brooklyn Nets. If not, you will find me at my funeral.
Rip.
Well, actually, no one that listens to this show probably will be invited to my funeral, unless you know
Yeah.
me outside of the host of this show. But otherwise,
Will I
Yeah.
be invited?
I mean, really, I'm not in charge of invitations. But yes, you
Okay,
can
good.
reach out to Jake if I die.
Okay.
He'll
I
get
will.
you set
I
up.
will.
I'm assuming he would go.
Yeah, probably.
I'd be hurt if he doesn't.
You
Actually,
could
I should
find
go, so.
you could find me on a cruise next week. That's why we're messing next week. On Twitter at Ashley_Marie with 2 A's and Ashley. Me, Duncan, and all the Undroppables crew. You can find us on our exclusive premium Discord channels, which you can gain access to by becoming a patron at patreon.com/theundroppables. Duncan and I are here pretty much every other Wednesday during the off season. Sometimes it's a little bit here and there in the off season, but we will definitely be here. Not next week, the following week. Come join us so that we can have your input on what you think the NFL draft is going to play out like. Right before it does, we do it Wednesday. The draft starts Thursday. So we hope you join us. We hope you have a fabulous 2 weeks, and we will see you then.
No, we won't, because we have 2 quick little small pieces of news. Jeff Bezos will not be bidding on the Washington Commanders. And this one's especially exciting for you. Dexter Lawrence will not be reporting to training camp because of an unresolved contract situation. LOL.
I saw that coming. I saw that one coming. So
I love just crushing your hopes and dreams right as we're getting out of here.
Anyway, I'll do the sign off again. I hope you have a fabulous 2 weeks, and we will hopefully see you on the 26th for this podcast right before the NFL draft. Have a good one.
Go Sixers.